Hello, friends of Samuel's Public Library. It's Miss Pattie. It's bedtime story time for our Goodnight Sweetheart time. And Lammy's here with us. Say hello to our friends. Hi. Well, I'm glad you could be with me for this story time. And, you know, when I was little, I remember thinking it was really strange that in the summer, in the spring and summer, that it was so light out that I had to go to bed even when the sun was still shining. Maybe you've thought that too. So I'm going to start with our first story called A Bedtime for Bear. Make sure you can see the pictures. A Bedtime for Bear by Bonnie Becker. Everything had to be just so for Bear's bedtime. His glass of water had to sit on the exact right spot on his bedstand. His favorite pillow must be nicely fluffed. His nightcap needed to be snug. Most of all, it had to be quiet. Very, very quiet. And he has a little sign that says, "Do not disturb." Do you see Bear in his nice snuggly chair? There. One evening, Bear heard a tap, tap, tapping on his front door. When he opened the door, there stood Mouse. Small and gray and bright-eyed, he clasped a tiny suitcase in his paw. "I am here to spend the night," exclaimed Mouse with a happy wiggle of his whiskers. He looks excited. "Surely we agreed on next Tuesday," protested Bear. He looked a little perturbed. "No," said Mouse, "you most definitely said tonight." "Oh," said Bear. Bear had never had an overnight guest before. Guests could quite possibly mess things up and make noise. And Bear needed quiet, absolute quiet at bedtime. Even so, Bear and Mouse enjoyed an evening of checkers and warm cocoa. And soon it was time for bed. Do you have something nice that you'd like to play or do before bedtime? Checkers is kind of fun, and cocoa is the best. "Remember, I must have absolute quiet," reminded Bear. "Oh, indeed," said Mouse. Bear set out his glass of water, adjusted his nightcap, fluffed his favorite pillow, and climbed into bed. It was very, very quiet, and he closed his eyes. Bristle, 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 Bear heard a noise. It was Mouse brushing his teeth. Ahem. Bear cleared his throat in a reminding sort of way. "Oh, sorry," said Mouse. Bear closed his eyes once again. Hum-pa-pum-pa-pum, Mouse hummed while he put on his nightshirt. Pum, pum, pum. Absolute quiet, muttered Bear most patiently. Deepest apologies, said Mouse. Creak, squeak, rat went Mouse's bed as he hopped in. Bear jammed his pillow over his ears, gritted his teeth, and closed his eyes. He was just about to drift off to sleep when... "Good night, Bear," Mouse called softly. Bear tried to pretend that he was asleep. "Good night," Mouse called a little louder. "My ears are highly sensitive," said Bear. "Really? How interesting," Mouse said. "Can you hear this?" Mouse mumbled into his pillow. "Yes." "Amazing. How about this?" Mouse said from under his pillow. "Quiet." Mouse slipped under his blanket, crawled to the bottom of his bed, and whispered, "Can you hear this?" "Silence!" Bear roared. He is not amused. Mouse slid from his bed, went into the closet, and said in the tiniest possible voice into the farthest, darkest, teeniest possible corner of the closet, "Surely you can't hear this." Do you see him in the closet? There he is. Do you think Bear can hear him now? "Will this torment never cease?" wailed Bear. "Sorry, Bear. Good night, Bear," whispered Mouse, tiptoeing back into bed as quiet as a, well, you know. Bear fluffed his favorite pillow, adjusted his nightcap, and waited. But there was no more sound from Mouse. At last it was quiet. Very, very quiet. See? Bear heard a shuffling sound. "Mouse, is that you?" No answer. Bear heard a crick, crick, crick on the floorboard. "I know it's you." No answer. "You can't fool me," Bear growled. But he didn't sound very certain. Bear heard a low moaning noise. "Mouse!" Silence. Does Bear look a little frightened? I think so. And Mouse is still asleep. Bear was sure something rustled on the floor. "Mouse!" he cried. "Wake up!" And Mouse woke up. Mouse stumbled out of bed, small and gray and sleepy-eyed. "What is it?" But Bear couldn't see any rustly, moany sort of thing in his room. His room looked quite like it always looked. "Nothing," lied Bear, still clutching his blanket to his chin. "I must have been talking in my sleep." Bear chuckled, but it was rather quavery. "Ah," said Mouse with a glance at Bear. "Could I peek under your bed?" asked Mouse. Sometimes I like to check for things, you know. Well, if you insist, said Bear. Nothing, said Mouse from under the bed. You'll want to check behind the curtains, I suppose, said Bear. All clear, declared Mouse a moment later. And you better check the closet, offered Bear. Then you won't be the least bit nervous. Mouse came out of the closet, dusting his paws. Not a thing. Thank you, Bear. Good night. Wait, said Bear. You'll want a bedtime story, I expect, said Bear, for your nerves. For my nerves, said Mouse. Oh, indeed, I'm quite shaken. Then, with an eager flick of his tail, he settled on Bear's favorite pillow. And Bear told him all about the adventures of the brave, strong bear and the very frightened little mouse. That's a good story, isn't it? Bear seems to like it. Soon, Bear began to yawn. Mouse yawned too. Good night, Bear, said Mouse. Good night, Bear mumbled. Then Bear began to snore loudly. But Mouse just smiled. And soon Mouse and Bear were fast asleep. Shh. Good night, Mouse and Bear. Maybe you're feeling sleepy after a busy and full day. I have one more if you can keep your eyes open a little longer. Back to Bed, Ed, by Sebastian Braun. Every night, Ed loved getting ready for bed. He played games with Dad. Clip clop, he had a drink. Sip sip, and cleaned his teeth. Brush brush. He had a bubbly bath, splish splash, a story with Mom. Then all tucked in bed. Kiss kiss, night night, sleep tight. Click. Ed loved going to bed. But Ed hated staying in bed. Tiptoe, tiptoe. Dad, it's too dark in my room. Back to bed, Ed, grumbled Dad. But Ed didn't go back to his bed. And Dad didn't get much sleep that night. Is it a little squishy? Yeah, a little. The next morning, Dad said, "Stay in your own bed, Ed. You're a big mouse now." But later that night, tiptoe, tiptoe. Mom, there are monsters in my bedroom. Back to bed, Ed, groaned Mom. But Ed didn't go back to his bed. Mom and Dad didn't get much sleep that night. Ed's kind of a bed hog, isn't he? The next morning, they slept through the alarm. Dad was late for work. Ed was late for preschool. And so it went on, night after night. Ed left his bed. Mom, Dad, Mom, Dad, Mom, Dad, back to bed, Ed. They shouted. Mom and Dad had had enough. The next morning, they came up with a plan. Closed. That night, when Ed went to Mom and Dad's bedroom, the door was shut and he couldn't go in. Poor Ed didn't know what to do. Sniff, sniff, sniff. Dad came out. Come on, Ed, back to bed, he said. The night light is on. You've got your friend. There's no need to be scared. You're a big mouse now. Do you have a special friend that you sleep with at night? But Ed didn't stay in bed. He got up and he found his teddy and his frog, his duck, his squirrel. Now he had all of his friends around him. There's no need to be scared, he said. I'm here now. After that, Ed always slept in his own bed. And everyone got a good night's sleep. Well, not quite everyone. Wah! Wah! Is the baby crying? Sleep tight, Ed. Yeah. Sometimes it takes a while to be comfortable sleeping by yourself in a big boy or girl bed, right? We used to say to our kids when they were little, good night, sleep tight, wake up bright in the morning light to do what's right with all your might. So I hope you have good night sleeps with your special friend and think about your day and all the things you did. And then when you wake up, it's time for a whole new day full of wonderfulness. So I miss you. Good night.